please welcome to the TEDx Sonoma County stage, Phyllis Rosenfield.
As a representative of Listening for a Change today, and considering what we do need more of, one of the things that comes up for us is exactly what you're doing here today, and that's listening. Our contention is that we don't do enough listening. Our hegemonic culture says talk, 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 whether it's the television, the radio, or simply going to a social event. We talk a lot, and the person who is most clever and witty seems to be the person who we gravitate to. Listening for a Change basically challenges that concept and says that we create connections one story at a time, and that it's imperative, if we're going to come to know, understand, and accept one another, that we take the time to listen and make connections. There's an art in this, and the art is getting lost, and that's too bad. Our contention, again, is that if we spend time, and this is what we do, we write teacher curriculum, we teach, we go out into the community, if we spend time learning the basics of listening and social discourse, we all acquire more. And this includes our body language. It includes open-ended and follow-up questions, a lot of times something we're not very good at. It includes not talking about ourselves so much. And it includes safe to sensitive, framing our questions from safe to sensitive, and as well as allowing each other plenty of time, not just jumping in and saying something, finishing someone else's sentence, or adding your own thoughts to whatever has been said. Since I was a young child, I knew people who had escaped or survived the Nazi Holocaust in Europe because they were Jewish. And I also grew up in the segregated South and taught in a segregated school in Nashville my first year of teaching. It's because of that that you come to know how important it is to not otherize and to create connections so that we can understand one another and respect one another more effectively. In my later California life, and some of you who are as old as I am may remember this, but in the 80s, there was actually legislation proposed in Sacramento to put AIDS victims in camps. And that was very disturbing. Another woman and I put our heads together, and we decided to interview people who lived in Sonoma County, in our area, who had either survived the Shoah Holocaust, Cambodians from the Pol Pot regime, and Japanese Americans, and interview them and share their stories more widely, which we did. All of these people had to gather their belongings in a short amount of time. They didn't know where they were going. They all went to some kind of camp. They dramatically lost human rights, but in different ways. That's not really relevant, except that what we saw over and over again as we analyzed the stories, these generous stories that we received, was that people who knew their neighbors, there was no guarantee, but people who knew their neighbors had some chance that their neighbor would open their heart or their hand, and often at great risk to themselves and their families, help that person out. Without that, when you were just the other, there was no hope. So that lesson became the foundation of all of our other programs, which involved a community program of teaching, having workshops for people to learn oral history taking, interview their neighbors, something for businesses and nonprofits. But the one we focus on is the one for youth. And we're working with young people in the school systems, teaching them how to do oral histories, and then having them interview their neighbors across a wide spectrum. And what they get is the connection. You know, if this happened to you and you overcame these struggles, then you know what? I can do that too. So it's resiliency, it's making connections and learning from other people. As we go forward in our lives, our communities seem to be more separated by ethnicity, culture, and economics. And that's troubling. So we need new tools to cross boundaries and make these connections and offer solutions. Today is one of those examples. We have people from many different backgrounds here today, and we're listening to other ideas. It's very, very exciting. And then we become the change. It's up to each of us to make the difference. Through our neighborhood listening project in the schools, the kids have been interviewing people, as I mentioned, across the community. And one of the questions they asked in the last few months was, what does the world need more of? And we have created a few short videos, you'll see one now, of what some of these responses are. There were a panel of 3 to 5 kids interviewing each of the people that you'll see here.
In the entire world?
That's a big question.
Wow.
Wow, so much.
That's a good question. I don't.
Imagination.
Honesty.
Understanding.
Travel.
Caring.
Empathy.
Parents who are going to support their kids.
The compassion.
God.
Money. Tolerance.
Accepting.
A social responsibility to produce more and more role models for young people.
I think we get stuck in the belief that this is hard and this is where we're going and these are the problems, and we forget that we're really creative and that we've overcome a lot of problems in the past and that we have the ability to come together as a people and imagine a new future.
I think we just need to focus on the positive a little bit more.
I hope I answered your question.
The first thing that came to my mind when I thought about it was empathy. Because I think that if we really understood and put ourselves in the place of other people, we wouldn't be so quick to judge.
Because it feels like we tend to, as a world, as a community, as groupings of people, that we tend to be very into our own and very divided. And
I mean, I can read a million stories and case scenarios, but I can never walk in another person's shoes. So I have to really stop and listen and set my agenda aside.
So the thing that I've noticed that I think we need more of than anything is personal, intellectual honesty and finding the truth about yourself. And it's only as I open up to other people that they're willing to open up to me.
I hope one day that my grandchildren can bring home their friends with no matter what race, no matter what color, no matter what gender, or no matter what their parents are, and it's not a bunch of questions and a bunch of peeking around the corner to see if they look different or if they act different, or that it's all normal, that it's all normal. It's everyday life.
I think that the world and communities need more of is trees.
More shelters and more help for the homeless.
Just morality. I mean, just it's not about the end game. It's not about who collects the most stuff.
To remember that everybody is struggling from something, and it might be different from what you're struggling with.
Funding for schools, I think that's what we need the most, because we need a lot of great minds.
Just meeting people from different places and going to different places and seeing what they're like. That's the biggest thing we need.
Thank you very much.